Mic test. Yeah. Okay. So okay, I hope everyone will be still a bit alert. Don't be so sleep first. We still got 1 hour to go with. Um, you know, before we have a lunch break, no worry. Okay. So I think we will proceed on to the next section. It will be a little bit more interesting. Because when we have two keynote just now, so we open it up for question and answer. Now we give you more time to question and answer now for this round. We're coming into the panel discussion. So before we start that, maybe we want to invite our two speakers to be on the stage today. So we have Adrian Wan from Internet Society, and also we have Dr. Sabani from Association for Progressive Communication. May you be on the stage? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think since in the morning session until now, we are keep talking about connectivity, the challenges coming in to connect, for the human side to come in. So we listen from the local perspective in the morning, from Prof. Khairuddin starting. After that, we listen from Dr. Rachel from the Malaysian side. Now, we want to a little bit go out further and look at the international side for today morning. Internet Society and also Association for Progressive Communications, they are basically a body for, it's an NGO, and also they are actually looking at the whole perspective. Why not we listen a little bit how from other side of the world, means outside from Malaysia, what is actually happening? What is actually they are trying to do actually, to give this unconnected to be connected. So this is something that we need to open our eyes and maybe have some idea what we can do actually. So maybe without further ado, I invite Adrian as our first some sort like to give us a view before we can ask question coming in later on. They will be sitting there for you to ask them question. I'm not sure they can answer everything, but we will try our best. Okay, Adrian. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. Really happy seeing everyone here today. I want to thank UTS, of course. Thank you, Prof. Khairuddin, who's still with us, I hope. Dr. Tariq, Gary, and the team for the invitation. My second time being here in a couple of months, which is a real pleasure. I must say I found both of the sessions this morning really enlightening and thoroughly inspiring. And I thought I'd take this time by looking at the word internet first. It's not anywhere on the slide, but let me move it here. So yeah, I represent Internet Society. I'm going to tell you a bit more about the organization in a moment. Is it clear from the back though? Just the sound? Yeah, thanks. The word internet, I want to look at it since we've been talking about it for the entire morning. So when you can break it down to two parts, right? There is inter and there is net. And inter means interconnected, and net means network. So that really is the essence of the internet to us. That is when networks decide to work together and interconnect. They can do that. They can become part of the internet. And that's how the internet has grown from a research project decades ago in the US to what it is today. It also shows that if we want to grow it together, if we decide to collaborate, we can. And that spirit is really at the heart of what I'm going to talk about today, community networks. If you don't know anything about the Internet Society, this is a good place to start because we think the internet is for everyone. The internet anyway, should be for everyone. I can't say it is now for everyone because there's a lot left behind. And so what we do really springs from this belief that the internet is for everyone. The second line that you see on the screen, digital connectivity building a foundation for digital transformation. It's a tagline of this event, I was told. So just added a while ago. But anyway, I feel it's a meaningful phrase. Just a bit more about what the Internet Society does. We are a global non-profit organization headquartered in the US and also Switzerland. An overview of our work is that we can split our work up into three parts: making the internet stronger, growing the internet, and empowering people. So what we're here to talk about today really stays in the middle pie, about growing the internet. But of course, you can argue that in growing the internet this way, in this manner, it actually makes the internet stronger as a whole. And of course, I'm really happy to connect with all of you, so I'm hoping we can contribute to the third pie as well, which is to empower everyone. So I won't spend too much time here, but I just want to talk about we have a global network of chapters around the world. There are more than 100 of them around the world. There is one in Malaysia, and the website shown on the screen. Feel free to check it out. So community networks, I want to start by answering what it is, why we do it, and how we should do it, right? So why community networks, and why eBarrio this morning, and why are so many projects all around APAC done by Prof. Khairuddin, right? We can certainly, everyone here sitting in this room, count ourselves as fortunate ones because we have the internet, we have the world's information at our fingertips. But there are, according to the ITU, nearly 3 billion people now still don't have that privilege. So, and this happens at the time when the rate of internet growth is slowing down. It grew quite rapidly the past decades or so, but it's slowing down because the way we have been connecting people, relying on conventional providers, that has worked for urban and densely populated areas. But when it comes to rural, remote, and typically developing low-income areas, it's not so great. From the two sessions this morning, I think you'll have gathered why that is so. So that is why it is clear to us that we need new ways to connect the billions of people around the world. And what we're discussing here today, community networks, is one such solution. I will sound like a broken record, but community networks are networks built by and for the communities, as said by Prof. Khairuddin this morning. In a very practical sense, they happen when a community comes together and builds local infrastructure that connects to the rest of the internet, and also let the world connect to this community at the same time. We've been wary about talking about technology, but technologically speaking, it would be the connection between the community and the internet is usually called a backhaul. It can take the form of either a fiber connection, a satellite connection, or other wide or wireless connection. We call community networks complementary access solutions because they complement the work of traditional or conventional telcos and internet service providers. Community networks often partner with these operators to work together and to connect the communities to the internet. Prof. Khairuddin also talked about local champions and partners, and indeed these are really important elements. Community networks are about community and networks, right? And so community is a huge part, as we have heard this morning from the two sessions. And they're designed to different needs. As we said, there is no one size fits all approach when it comes to community networks. They come in different sizes. They can serve, typically from 50 to 50,000 people in a network. It can have different setups. Can only be Wi-Fi only. Can be a mesh network. Or some take the form of a municipal network as a small business. They serve different purposes. Other than giving people access to the internet, as we saw, I think, on the dividends slide by Prof. Khairuddin this morning, they actually improve the openness and autonomy of the community. And of course, in some cases, it's not about giving access, but also improving affordability to the internet to the community. And they're governed in different ways. Some are governed by non-profit member associations, some by small businesses, and some of them are partnerships between governments and businesses and NGOs. But when speaking as someone who co-leads a team looking at community networks around the world, and just to give you a bit more background, in the past two years or so, we've supported over 60 deployments around the world, around a dozen of them in Asia Pacific. So far, there's none in Malaysia, but we've worked in places like Nepal, like India, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, yeah. And our experience tells us that the pillars of running community networks really comes down to these 5 things. They need a favorable, starting from the left, the blue bubble. They need a favorable policy and regulatory environment that not only allow them to exist, but also supports them and makes it easier for them to start their own networks and successfully sustain them over time. I'll give you a bit of example about how actually some policies may not make it easy for networks to start themselves. Moving on to the second, backhaul, which is a term for the link between the community and the internet. That is typically an issue because that is the bridge that is needed, and to get that, you need some sort of partnership with internet providers. So that has to be worked out. The third bubble, knowledge or know-how, because we've not really talked about technology because the focus, rightly so, it's been on community, but it's also a technical matter to build, maintain, and expand a network. And so the community has to cultivate skills to sustain the network over time, and to make sure that communities are self-reliant, and so that people can have a service that they can rely on. Of course, networks will need users as well in order to be sustainable and be successful. They need a critical mass of users that will use the network and support its sustainability, which leads us to the last bubble, sustainability. I will tell you a bit more about sustainability here in a moment. When we talk about sustainability, it's not about environmental sustainability. It's about how the network can sustain themselves, and that remains a really tough issue. These are the challenges we see in many community networks around the world, and to be successful, you need to overcome them. Broadly, you can categorize them into financial, technical, and regulatory challenges. Financial, because you need money to run a network, and you need money to set up a connection between the community and the internet. And sometimes governments would require licenses for you to set up your own network, and not to mention the equipment costs and so on. Talking about cost, one of the largest is backhaul. Community networks usually have to buy it from providers through some sort of partnership. Some community networks have been able to negotiate discounted or free or really cheap backhaul links, but they're unlikely to be available forever, because the providers are businesses. And so to save cost, the amount of backhaul capacity that is typically bought is limited, which creates congestion and leads to poor performance, and especially when using high bandwidth application like we all are doing, like with YouTube or Netflix or Spotify. These really are data hungry applications that can affect everyone else's experience. But moving on to the third column, regulatory issues. To set up your own network is not so simple. In many countries, you need licenses. You have to go through, you have to find out first whether you can set up your own network. And if you can, what sort of format it should take, and how much it would cost, and so on. A lot of paperwork, typically. There's also lack of access to spectrum. It's a finite resource that is so important in wireless communications. Community networks lack of access to lower frequency radio spectrum that does not require line of sight, means that they're forced to build high towers that are costlier. So we've been talking a lot about towers. Why do we need towers? Because they need to be high enough so that there is line of sight, so that there is connectivity between the tower and users, right? Or base stations, right? So without lower frequency radio spectrum, that's what's needed, and these are expensive to build, and these take a lot of precise management to do. So these lower frequencies are either not license exempt, or they're not made available entirely. They are usually held by telcos who have spent a lot of money on them, would they be willing to share it with you? So that is a problem. About licenses, I'll actually talk about the last point in the third column here, lack of support for infrastructure sharing here. So I think we talked about this morning as well. It's that if you have existing infrastructure, why don't you let it be shared with similar users that can make use of it. But lack of support for infrastructure sharing inhibits access to passive infrastructure and backhaul. And sometimes the high prices for sharing forces community networks to build their own towers, even when existing towers are available. So say if Sarawak has built 7,000 towers already as planned, but if they're not willing to let people benefit in sharing in its utilities, can we reach everyone ultimately? That is a question as well. So it's after you spend all the capex building all the towers, could there be some sharing arrangement done? For instance, yeah. Just an example. I'm not suggesting it is a good idea, right? We see many good policy and regulatory practices around the world, and we see that it's becoming a rapidly developing movement, actually. Different governments are taking actions to make it easier for people to start their own networks. For instance, in the second point, Nepal, it charges a fee of $1 for rural ISP license. In other places, it can go up to thousands of dollars per year, which is really, really high for communities. In Argentina, in the first line, a lot of countries, Argentina, Brazil, they provide license exemption or license fee exemption for community networks to encourage people to set up their own networks. But I won't go into all of them here. If you're interested, I'm happy to share this with you. A bit about what we actually do when it comes to community networks. We work in all 4 stages here: engagement, deployment, training, and policy. When it comes to policy, we work with the communities and local partners to assess the local policy environment and support regulatory changes when needed. We encourage policymakers around the world to consider regulatory frameworks that enable people to set up their own networks, of course. And we support training efforts for communities to be able to deploy and sustain their networks, either on community engagement or technical matters about network operations. And in deployment, we share knowledge. We support them with funding or equipment, and even help local champions around the world to talk to each other and to learn from each other in order for the project to be successful. I shouldn't spend too much time here, but I want to end by this slide with some key takeaways. Having listened to the sessions this morning, the first is really to understand the community's needs. When a community network aims to create a collective solution to a collective problem, it is true that not everyone will necessarily understand what it is doing, or even support the community network concept from the onset, because frankly speaking, it's quite a new thing. Let people have time to understand what it is, and let them understand the value of it. Also, align when deploying services, align your services and solutions to the values of and needs of the communities. So we cannot simply assume just because this area is unconnected, let's build a tower here and that will solve all problems. That is not how it works. We cannot assume that just because it works for us, it will work for others. It is important to start by listening to people to describe their lifestyles and how they could use it to live a better life. The second point is to empower local champion groups. When supporting community networks, it's essential to create time and support the local champion groups to share the value proposition with the community members. It's not enough just for the local champions to get it. It takes time for these ideas to flow into the community. And also be really flexible to adapt the value proposition, according to the feedback from the community. I will move on to my last point. Sustainability cannot be an afterthought. So far we've spoken a lot about building, like building towers, building networks, and so on. But what about sustainability? How are we going to run the network over time? So financial sustainability is key to being able to sustain any community network. And this requires careful consideration and planning to take the needs and requirements of technology. There is personnel issues, there is running costs, and there are different user groups. We all should take these into account. Creating a solid foundation of financial sustainability before it starts is important, as the network will incur costs to function properly. So, but as I've said, we support many networks with seed funding, and so, but while giving out this seed funding, we also help them come up with some sustainability plan, and then that is an essential part to getting our support. So typically, there are different ways for them to generate income. For instance, they can sell data vouchers to users for a nominal price, usually, to access Wi-Fi through public community hotspots. These would be affordable to people, but they could also sell it to homes, non-governmental organizations, and businesses with a direct line through something like a monthly subscription, right? But these are just some ideas of how they can achieve sustainability. So that's it for me. I understand we're moving on to Sabani's part now. Yeah.
Hello everyone. Good morning. I'm Sharbani Belur, and I'm the Asia Regional Coordinator for Association for Progressive Communications. Association for Progressive Communications is a body or an organization of civil rights organizations all over the world, and it is in one platform that they come together. This organization, that is APC, works on various aspects of digital inclusion, not only on connecting the unconnected, but also on internet rights, on feminist rights, feminist movement, and various other things. So I am a part of the project which is called Connecting the Unconnected by Seeding Community Networks to Grow. And our project is primarily funded by Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA. And we work mainly in the global south, that is Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Now, what is this community network? I mean, of course, Adrian has spoken about it, and we all know about what is a community network. But I would just like to mention that the focus of community network is not on connecting the unconnected, but how the unconnected can connect themselves. We put it in the hands of the community that how the unconnected can connect themselves. And that is why we focus quite a lot on community engagement and the community taking up the responsibility of connecting themselves. We do only a small part of handholding, and try to identify that what are the needs, what are the community needs, how would they want to use the connectivity, and how would they want to utilize it in their day-to-day lives. Some communities want only online connectivity, but then the communities also think about how are they going to pay for that connectivity. It's when it's not sustainable. They don't have the income to pay. So then they move into another alternative discussion of how offline networks, mesh networks can work. And there are various communities all over the world who are working only on offline mesh networks. So it's not online connectivity per se. As I have told you that we work with partners and collaborators all over the world. We have organizations in Asia. We call them as peer organizations. They are where the focused funding comes from Association for Progressive Communications. And we also have catalytic grantees. That is, if an organization is working on a focused thing, just not on community network like Professor Tariq's organization here in UTS, working. So they work on policy perspective. So they have they are trying to work on a different aspect of community network, and that they are called the catalytic grantees. And now recently this year we have introduced communities of practice, where we even go deeper into aspects that really need focus on, like for example the relevance. Why do we need to set up towers? And the towers are very expensive. Why do we need to set up? We can go in for an alternative solution of having bamboo towers, for example, or solar energy, how to make it as an efficient system for connecting the unconnected, when electricity is a big problem. So this is actually our funding strategy of Association for Progressive Communications. Now let me give you some examples of organizations that we work in Asia, with whom we work. We work with organizations in India. There is an organization with whom we used to work in Myanmar before the political coup. We work with organizations in Indonesia. We have Common Room in Indonesia. We have Kapal Perampuan in Indonesia. Kapal Perampuan is a community radio for disaster management, and Common Room is an organization that works quite a lot with the government and other stakeholders in Indonesia on connecting the unconnected. We also work together with organization in Philippines called ISEA, ISEA. It's a social entrepreneurship organization, and we are connecting to other organizations now in Asia. So what do we do now? We have discussed so much. What do we do now? So one of the important things is that we just don't rely on online connectivity. We enable connectivity, but it is not online always. So because, you know, we always have that thing that the community has to take over the connectivity issue, And for that, the connectivity they should be able to pay for that. They should be able to pay the bills, monthly bills and the yearly bills for connectivity. So often we work with offline mesh networks, and why these mesh networks are there, wherein we try to enhance local services. Like for example, there is a lot of local knowledge within the various communities. They would like to aggregate this knowledge in a server. It's a very small thing. It's a very small technology. It's like aggregation of knowledge about biodiversity, about their language, about their culture, about art and craft, whatever. They would just like to preserve it in the form of audios, videos, photographs, all in a local server. And we give that opportunity to the community that they can share such information within the community. Then we also have another thing like community radio. We work quite a lot with community radios, because community radios are also another medium by which the community expresses themselves. You know, they have to express themselves, and that's the medium wherein we enhance quite a lot of community journalism to take place. Like, you know, there is a festival in my village, I would like to cover that festival, and then they come in. And we enhance women to be a important part of community network, because we have seen that when connectivity is enabled, online connectivity is enabled in the rural villages, in the remote areas, women tend to not use it as much as the men do. And given an opportunity to women, they would like to use it more for household purposes. Like, you know, they take care of the homework of their children that comes on WhatsApp. They would like to look at various things like recipes and things of that sort. However, the utilization by men is usually mostly entertainment. This is a study that I have done, and this is the thing that has come out of it. Now, we also focus on meaningful connectivity. So meaningful connectivity is just not enabling internet connectivity at one location and then forget about them. It's not about that. It is meaningfulness. How, whether that connectivity that we have enabled over there, is it catering to the needs of the community? And is it kind of catering to the needs of the community? And there are various examples of community networks in Argentina, in Latin America. We have quite a lot of community networks that are currently in Mexico. In Africa, we have Tunapandanet. We have various Mamaila community network that has come up very recently, that has been set up by the community, and it's by a woman. And we focus quite a lot on usage of internet. Are they using it only for entertainment? Are they using it only for WhatsApp calling, watching Hotstar and YouTube or Netflix? Or are they using it in their day-to-day lives? Now, when we come to this question of usage, we will try to see that when they don't have connectivity, when we are not enabling them online connectivity, how are they going to use it? How are they going to get the internet? That is when we try to enable the local services within the community, and they try to use it in the community. Like we enable calling services within the community. Everyone who is on the intranet, they can call each other without the mobile signal. So that is something that we do. Of course, local knowledge and things of that sort. We focus on utilization of connectivity, and we focus on sustainability. Sustainability is, like Adrian mentioned, and Professor in the morning mentioned, and even Rachel mentioned. So it's very important. Sustainability is a very important aspect, and we try to do it, try to focus on it from the beginning when we try to seed the community network to grow. It's not at the end that we focus on it. We focus quite a lot on infrastructure sharing and reuse, because infrastructure sharing and reuse is an important aspect of community network. We don't need to build infrastructure again and again and again and reinvent the wheel. We would like to use infrastructure that is already there. So like in a project that I have worked on in India, we looked, when we went to do a ground survey, we found that there are quite a lot of towers that has already been set up by the government way back in 1984. That is during Sam Pitroda's time, when voice connectivity had to be enabled to the rural villages, and those towers were there. We took permission from the district collector and we asked him, and we tried to use those towers. So that has cut down on the cost of our deployment. So such type of reusing infrastructure, or if we have a solar panel put up on our tower, then we would like to share the energy with the village, for example. When there is no electricity and they would like to have some important meeting or something, the electricity is needed, we give them the electricity. And in turn, they give us something else, that like we can set up the tower on the terrace of the village council office, for example. We also focus on technologies that are very frugal, technologies that don't need a lot of investment, like community radio. It's a very small technology. We don't even think about transmitters and all. We just use mobile phones, Raspberry Pi devices for collecting information. We have these local servers, that is like again a Raspberry Pi device. We are often reliant on Raspberry Pi devices because we don't want that the technology also should be something that the community can start to maintain and replace or work on together. It's not that every time we go into the community and try to work with the technologies. We are currently working on a project in India now, which is on localization of technology, wherein we are trying to, there is an open source hardware router, which is called the Libre router, that has been developed by a community network in Argentina called Altermundi. And we are trying, because we get the router from China, and all the way it comes, and it becomes very expensive for us. So we are trying to localize that technology, bring it within our country, and trying to develop it within the country, customize it based on the needs of the Indian people, rural people. And that way we are trying to cut down the cost of the technology. That is another aspect of our work that we are doing. Enabling services, making bamboo towers, using solar energy as a solution, all things that we are working on. And these are all through peer organizations as part of APC, catalytic grantee organizations, and communities of practice people who work on that. Sustainability is very important, and we also work on sustainability, by which we build partnerships. Like for example, I'll give you the example of India, where we work with the village council as becoming an important partner in our connectivity, in bridging the connectivity divide or the digital divide. Then our partner in Common Room in Indonesia works with Avinet as the internet service provider. So wherever Avinet goes, their backbone or the backhaul comes from Avinet, and they seed community networks to grow. Common Room seeds community networks to grow. So we build partnerships like that. We build partnerships with local internet service providers wherever, like in India we have, I don't know whether there is one such license here, but in India we have a mobile operator's license. We also have a small mobile operator's license as well. We try to use that, and we work with the local internet service providers. So, we build partnerships quite a lot. We also try to channelize government funding, like the USOF funding, the Universalization of Service Obligatory Fund. We try to channelize such funds. We try to channelize village development funds. That is something that is ongoing in India presently. And in Indonesia as well, where our partner Common Room is working with Ministry of Villages and Ministry of Information, ICT. We also work, Association for Progressive Communications also works on policy and advocacy. And we work on policy which is bottom-up approach. We don't work on a top-down approach of policy, wherein we want the policy, all this work that we are doing in various parts of the world, we try to aggregate that work and put it into the policy discussion. We sensitize telecom policymakers and telecom regulators on the need for meaningful connectivity. I mean, you know, what is meaningful connectivity? How do they perceive what is meaningful connectivity? Because it's a very buzzword now, this meaningful connectivity. What is it actually? Is it just putting up internet at one location? Is it connectivity, meaningful connectivity, or people using it in their day-to-day lives? Is that meaningful connectivity? We do quite a lot on that. We work on sustainable financial business models, and as for that we work with village funds, USOF funds. We work with different other funding agencies for financial business models. We try to work quite a lot on this unlicensed band usage, like, you know, whether the TV white space, for example, as a spectrum, can we use such unutilized spectrum for connecting the unconnected? We are doing advocacy for that. Yeah, so that's all about Association for Progressive Communications. If there are any questions, please do ask.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and also Dr. Sabani. We're supposed to be asked a lot of questions, but now they seems like presenting the whole session now. We left with about 10 minutes now here, but we will still want to have question and answer for them, you know, because they will be looking from the perspective from outside of Malaysia. Maybe something that you don't understand, even community network, some of us we are thinking, what is that thing actually? You know, community network, what is that thing actually? Maybe you can ask them. So we can ask this question and answer time. So I will give them the mic. So anyone got any question, please raise your hand and our student volunteer will give you a mic to ask a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm Adrian Bani from Sabah. With regards to these community networks, one of the things that really sparks my question is like sustainability, because how do this community get like revenue to sustain the system? Is there any particular model? Or do you need to have continuously have some sort of support coming in for this community network? Secondly, about the unregulated, because I think Malaysia is like over-regulated in terms of the airspace and all this. But I like to see how the other country explore the public, the unregulated bandwidth, which actually that's the way to move forward for this community. Right? So these are two questions. I think Adrian and also Sabani.
Thank you. Thanks for asking that question. So when we, so sustainability is a very important question that we address when we seed the community network to grow. So from the very beginning, when we seed the community network, we tell them that there is no funding that is going to come year after year to sustain your network. So you have to understand what is the need for which you need that connectivity, and how are you going to benefit from that connectivity. The word benefit from connectivity actually focuses quite a lot on how are they going to use it, and what would be for example, communities say that in the community that I work with, an indigenous tribe called the Warli tribes in Maharashtra, and they were very focused on two things. One is that we don't need a 24/7 mobile connectivity, and we know that you are coming from an academic institution, so you are not the person, you are not an internet service provider. So mobile connectivity has to be given by an internet service provider, for which you need a special type of a license. We don't need that. But we need connectivity that will meet our basic requirement of services being enabled within the village. Because we are traveling 20 kilometers away to the city or the town for any small activity, like, you know, looking into our bank ATMs, drawing money from the bank ATM, or looking into anything. I mean, you know, digital services that the government enables for us. We have to travel 20 kilometers and we spend the entire day, we lose our wages and things of that sort. So they were very clear on first thing, the services being enabled within the village, and second is that they wanted connectivity in any form, online, offline, whatever, to impact their livelihoods. So they were telling that we have this thing, that we have quite a lot of local knowledge, we have art and craft, we have paintings, music, and this. So we would like that connectivity, online or offline, impact our livelihood. That's it. These are the two things that they mentioned. Now we worked around with the community that, okay, this is what you want, we will enable you that. Now we put up a cellular router for which the banking services and the digital services were enabled within the community. So we enabled a banking correspondent and empowered a banking correspondent, and she was doing all the banking services and the digital services within the community. So that part of so that online was not given to everyone, only for enabling services. The offline part, we enabled them to first aggregate all the information that they have. Whatever information you have, you aggregate that information. Out of that information, what we tried to do is that we sat down together and we told that which part of this information would you want to market to the outside world. They were very clear. Music, we would not like to market it through you. We have our own processes of marketing the music. Okay, fine, we respect it. We will not do that. But art and craft, we would like to market it. We would want the entire world to buy our paintings. We said, okay, fine. So we did a little design intervention. Because their painting and everything, we did a design intervention. We set up a e-commerce portal for them where they paint and they put it up. They do it themselves. They paint, they put up their products online, and people buy it online. You can also purchase it online from here. So then what happened is that impacted their livelihoods, because this is such an important thing. Painting is a very important part of their life. They depict everything on painting, through paintings. Their entire life is on painting. So they started marketing, and that impacted their livelihood. Then that impacted the community, by which the community started buying smartphones. Earlier they did not have smartphones, so some people only had. Then they started buying smartphones. Then they started to utilize it in a very productive manner, and this is how the entire cycle of the sustainability model is working in our community. This is just a small example. There are various other examples in Latin America, in Africa, where digital services, digital literacy is being worked together. Yeah.
I can quickly add to that. Is it clear? Right, okay. So typically when we support community networks, we can only give them like a startup seed fund. Never more than never beyond the first year or 2 years. And in fact, as a condition for the support, they will have to present a sustainability plan, like a projection of how you plan to make income or revenue from the network, be it selling internet vouchers to users, or you can, if the policy allows, you can benefit from, for instance, universal access service funds. Understand this is still in the works in Malaysia. So, but yeah, there are different models to doing it. Some run homestays, as we heard in eBarrio, and yeah, we're actually looking at a wide range of ways to make revenue. But you're right, this has to be thought out from the very beginning. Actually, he asked a second question about licensing. Is there more question? If not, I can get back to you. after the session, if there's no more question, we can get to it now. Right, okay. Sure, yeah. Do you want to go first for the licensing part?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. So for the licensing, we often work with unlicensed bands, 5.8 and 2.4 gigahertz and unlicensed band. But in India, actually our group worked on the TV white space. So this TV white space is a spectrum, and it's a very special thing in India that we have an entire 100 megahertz of spectrum, TV white space spectrum, that is unutilized and unused, because that is the property of the Broadcasting Agency of India, the national broadcaster. We have only one national broadcaster in India. And the Indian case is a very special case in the entire world, because we have an unlimited 100 megahertz of spectrum that is unutilized and unused. So we asked for an experimental license, because this TV white space is a very nice use case to look into connecting the unconnected, because it works on non-line of sight also. Because for the 5.4 gigahertz and 5.8 and 2.4 gigahertz, you have to have near line of sight or pure line of sight. But in TV white space, you can work with non-line of sight also. And the devices are expensive, but we also tried to make the devices in-house within our lab. We got a 10 megahertz of spectrum on an experimental basis. We did all the studies, and then we told that, okay, now you unlicense it, or you to lightly license it. And that movement is still ongoing in India. We are trying to work on the TV white space. Now they have come up with the Frugal 5G. The Frugal 5G. The Frugal 5G is trying to talk about all the unutilized spectrum, the entire spectrum range, all the unutilized spectrum. Why don't you divert it towards this 5G? And this concept is known as the Frugal 5G. It's being worked at IEEE standards and things of that sort. So that's the work that we have done, and we have very good results. 8 kilometers on line of sight in the TV white space, and pure line of sight, it is 5.5 kilometers that we have worked. Yeah.
On unlicensed spectrum, just because it's unlicensed does not mean that we can just go ahead and use it. And so what we must do is to get clarity from the regulator and the policymakers, and present them our plan, a proposal about how we're going to use it, and what kind of benefits they stand to get from it, but never to just go ahead and use it. Like some people feel that because it's unlicensed, so it's free for everyone. But no, you still need clarity from the regulator. So that's what we always try to do. There's a lot of partnership needed in the process. Yeah.
Maybe Dr. Leonardo? Press one time. Just press one time. You're on. Don't press so long.
Oh, there it is. Excellent. Technology.
Yeah.
Fun things. Look, thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. But I'm going to try and switch the conversation a bit, because we've heard stories of success, right? Like, we do this is great. We've done that, this is great. But do you have an example of something that your team or the organization wanted to do that went the wrong way, didn't work? What did you learn from that experience, and what changed, and how are you approaching failure? That's my question. I guess a bunch of questions in one. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to take this question first because I am the one who work on the field with the communities. So this very concept of community network for me came about as a learning experience. So I'll tell you, we got a very big funding from an NGO in India, and we connected 40 villages, just connected. So the NGO gave us the money for only connecting the 40 villages. So we took a lump sum bandwidth from the telecom operator Tata Teleservices during that time, that has closed down now with the advent of Reliance Jio. We just connected 40 villages, that's it. And there was nothing. But we ran the project for 1 year. 6 months, they got free of cost internet, all the 40 villages. By the time we were about to wrap up the project, 1 year got over, we had to wrap up the project, and we were coming away. And the people were all upset because we hooked them onto the internet and now we are pulling away everything. It was a big learning experience for me. I was get out by the people. I was not allowed to go out from the village. They called me inside the village and they asked me you will not go out of this village until and unless you tell us that you will not take away the internet from us. It has been a very big learning from me. And then what I decided is that, okay, fine, we will not take away the internet from you, but you should be able to pay for it. So they told us that you should have told us earlier. So this has been, and that's when we decided that, okay, we will try to get some extra funding for maintenance of the network, but you have to take responsibility that you will maintain this network yourself. This solar panel needs to be cleaned. When during the rains, the cable, the cable inside the modem that goes in, you have to look into it. You have to pull it out. You have to change the cable. You have to see whether the water has not entered into the cable duct. All those you have to do. We will try and get, and we will do it only for 3 months. After that, you have to take it over. And that was the way by which the community-owned network became a community network. And from then on, that's a very big learning lesson for me, that I never tell them anything. I will be sitting in the meetings with all the community members from the beginning till the end. Be it 15, 20, 25 meetings, trying to understand their need, and they will set up the network based on their needs. It's not my need of connecting the unconnected. How the unconnected is going to connect themselves is my lookout. And that's how, so that's
I'm afraid I don't have more interesting stories to share than that. But Sabani is right. We don't work directly with communities. Not directly. We typically work through middle organizations wherever we work, because we don't have the local knowledge wherever we work. And so we hear of a lot of stories like internet providers raising prices after a year or two, making it unaffordable for community networks. We hear of stories like even from the community that the local organization that we're working directly with is they accusing him or her of taking benefits away from the community, and so it's an extractive relationship that's unhealthy. Yeah, a lot can go on and can go wrong in these relationships, and and so it's not easy. Yeah.
So thank you very much, everyone. I think I will need to close this session. Otherwise, we will be overshooting our time. Yeah. So maybe during the lunchtime, we have a lunchtime now in the Oculus where we have your breakfast. Okay, you can go out from behind the door. Then you can just walk straight. Our student volunteer will bring you around. Some will be in front and some will be behind here. They will bring you to the Oculus for have lunch. So during the lunchtime, maybe you can ask them more questions. And maybe privately they will tell you more story. Openly, I think they will be scared to tell you more story. So we'll back here by 1:30. Okay, we'll back here by 1:30. And when you hear the ringing bell, dong dong dong, it started to coming back. 1:30 we'll back here. And we'll have an MOU and MOA exchange ceremony here until 2 o'clock. Then after that, we'll be splitting group. Okay, those of you who have an invitation card with you, okay, you will be specially invited to the policy dialogue because it's a closed door dialogue. Okay, so those of you without this card, you will be going to the exhibition to visit the student exhibition. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go for lunch now. Thank you.
Thank you.